Three college buddies were chilling in a boat by the ocean, planning a trip. Out of nowhere, they spot this creepy green fog in the sky, something they'd never seen before. All of a sudden, the whole city goes dark and crazy strong winds kick up. Sensing trouble, Clara freaks out and yells, "Pull up the anchor! Throw on the tarp! We gotta get back!" But the GPS is dead and there's no cell signal. Right then, one of Clara's friends just drops and dies. A few seconds later, her other friend's gone too. Now Clara's totally losing it, stuck in the boat's cabin. She's got no clue what's in the air outside that just killed her friends. A bit earlier, some old pals had crashed at Tano's place to hang out for the night. Russo and Lucas were a killer team at cards. They didn't just beat Tano and Juan every time, they rubbed it in their faces too. This time Russo dragged along his brother-in-law Omar, who was getting on everyone's nerves. Then they hear these loud bangs from outside. Nobody paid much attention at first, but soon the power cuts out and none of their gadgets are working. Before they can figure it out, Tano's wife Anna comes running downstairs freaking out. She says their garage mechanic just collapsed on the street. They want to go help, but can't find the keys to the main door. That's when they look outside and see something wild. Snowflakes are floating around in the middle of summer. They're shook, and it hits them. Maybe it's not safe to go out. They were dead right. A minute later, they watch a car driver die right in front of them. His breathing stops while he's still behind the wheel. So did everyone outside get hit the same way? Russo started freaking out about his daughter, who takes her dog for a walk around this time every day. He tried calling her on Tano's landline, but that was dead too. Juan was worried sick about his daughter Clara, but keeping themselves safe came first. They all got to work sealing up the windows and doors. Meanwhile, Russo, all torn up, slipped out behind everyone's backs to find his daughter. But in a flash, he was gone too. Nobody had a clue what the hell was going on or why the whole city was blacked out. Then they heard someone banging on the basement door. That door led through an alley to Tano's garage, which had been locked up for years. They managed to jimmy the old lock open, and there was a girl standing outside shivering in the cold. Her name was Ingrid, and she'd been delivering stuff in the area when all this kicked off. Lucky for her, she had a waterproof cover, so she ducked into the garage and survived. On the other side, Juan checked the car, but it was toast. It took them hours to figure out that all the electronics got fried by some kind of electromagnetic pulse. But here's the thing, there wasn't any nuclear attack, so where the heck did this EMP come from? While they were still wrestling with these questions, it was already 3 a.m. That's when they saw a light in the building across the street. An old guy was standing at his window, staring at them. They tried signaling him to stay away from the window, but he didn't get it, and he got taken out. A bit later, his wife came to check on him, and she went down the same way. Seeing that messed Juan up bad, his daughter Clara usually got up early to head to the club. Holding him back was getting tough, so Tano put together a suit for him out of waterproof clothes and a mask. They bundled him up in as much warm gear as they could and sent him out. In the end, that plan actually worked. Juan took off toward his place, suited up in that makeshift gear. The streets were a mess, bodies scattered everywhere, cars lined up like a graveyard. At one spot, he got this weird deja vu, like he'd seen this nightmare before. His heart started racing, and he bolted out of there. Further along, he stumbled on a train where folks in the AC coaches were still alive, screaming for help. Juan couldn't do much, so he tossed him a water bottle and said, "Hang tight, I'll get help and be back soon." Meanwhile, Ingrid was losing it. She was freaking out about her little brother. Tano had this janky mask, but nobody knew if it'd actually work. Tano piped up, "Let me test it. There's a fire station about 2 clicks from here. If you grab your bike, I can haul back a bunch of masks and suits." When Ingrid brought the bike, its little bulb flicked on. Right then, Tano got it. Old school stuff, no fancy circuits, was still working. Back to Juan. He made it to his apartment, but his wife and daughter were nowhere. He grabbed a photo of his daughter Clara, lost in thought. "That's the girl we saw on the boat, right? Did she make it?" Meanwhile, his wife Elena got word he was back and rushed home. But when she saw Clara wasn't with him, she freaked. Clara had gone out with her friend Grace last night and hadn't come back. Juan took off to track down Grace's place, but before he could, the whole apartment crew swarmed him. Everyone was like, "How the hell did you make it back from out there?" Juan laid it out. "Something toxic's coming down from the sky. Touch it and you're done. Gotta cover up head to toe." But the crowd wasn't buying it. They wanted to see his mask too. Juan knew if he lost that suit, he'd never find Clara. He pulled his gun, scared him off, and booked it. But then this armed gang started chasing him, and he had to duck into some random apartment flat to hide. Right at that moment, some folks were spotted at the fire station, swiping stuff. Juan could have fought them off, but finding Clara was the priority. So he suited up Elena and sent her out. Elena somehow slipped out of the apartment. Meanwhile, that gang busted the door down and stormed in. Next thing you know, Juan smashed a window, forcing everyone to scatter. After that, Juan rigged up a makeshift mask out of plastic and headed outside. But that mask didn't hold up long. Soon enough, he was choking and collapsed on the ground. When he came to, he found out some people had saved him. Crazy thing? They were his old buddies who Alina ran into on the highway. Tano put his brain to work and fixed up his dad's old car. Point was clear. Cars without electronic circuits could still run. Just then, meteors started crashing down from the sky. Clueless about it, everyone headed back to Tano's place. But then Omar saw his chance and peeled out with their car. He'd figured out they wouldn't last long without food and water. Meanwhile, Ingrid had no choice but to go look for her brother. A bit later, Ingrid rolled back in an old car. Her brother was already dead. With the car in hand, Juan and Tano hit the road, hunting for food, water, and Clara. On the way, they checked out that train where a ton of people were trapped before. Now, not a soul in sight. A little further, they hit the highway out of the city, totally jammed with cars. Looked like someone set it up on purpose. Right then, they ran into some soldiers from their own country, Argentina, heading to the Campo de Mayo army base camp. The soldiers didn't know much about the disaster either. They just said, "Stay home. Going out's way too dangerous." With that, they moved on, but Tano had a gut feeling, like they were hiding something. So Juan and Tano started tailing the soldiers on the down low. Out of nowhere, the soldiers spun around and opened fire. But they weren't shooting at Juan and Tano. It was at these creepy four-legged bugs. Those things were straight up terrifying, and their numbers kept growing. Trying to dodge them, their car skidded and flipped. Right then, Juan started hallucinating again, seeing his daughter safe and sound. Meanwhile, a brutal fight broke out between the bugs and the soldiers. The soldiers couldn't hold them off for long and got nabbed one by one. These bugs had set up shop in the sewers, and now they were dragging the captured soldiers down there. Then Tano screwed up big time, and the bugs spotted them. Juan quick drew and popped one with a headshot, but more bugs swarmed in right after. Nearby, some folks in a building were watching the whole thing. They jumped in at the perfect moment, helped Juan and Tano, and got them to their hideout safely. That place was already packed with people, including Omar. The second he saw Juan and Tano, he started griping. Nobody there gave a damn about his complaints, though. Here's the kicker. They found out those bugs, or creatures, were coming from the sky. Yup, aliens were invading Earth. Next thing, Tano freaked out about his wife Anna, but one wrong move could have screwed them all. Some bugs had already snuck into the building, and they'd figure out the hideout soon. Omar knew about a tunnel that could be their next safe spot. They all hashed it out, and except for a few, everyone agreed to ditch the hideout. As soon as things quieted down, they took off. Years back, the government had shut that tunnel down. They got to the spot Omar mentioned and started smashing through a wall while the rest holed up in a bus. They broke through and found the tunnel, then started sending people in one by one. But just then, the bugs showed up out of nowhere. Juan was stuck inside the bus with a woman, and the number of bugs kept growing. Right then, a bell rang out of nowhere, and as soon as they heard it, all the bugs scurried toward the sound. Turns out the bell was being rung by one of their buddies who'd flat out refused to roll with them earlier. Next thing you know, they doused the whole tower with oil and set it ablaze. Meanwhile, after getting everyone safely to the tunnel, Juan and Tano grabbed a few folks and went hunting for an old car. Sure enough, they ran into more bugs there, but they teamed up, fought them off, and peeled out in the car. On their way out, Juan even nailed one of them with a clean headshot. See, he used to be in the army, fought in a ton of battles, so his aim was dead on. Before long, they made it back to their place, but things didn't look good there either. Tano's garage was just sitting wide open. He bolted inside and was floored. Somehow, Juan's daughter had ended up back at Tano's place. Problem was, she wasn't exactly herself right then. After that, the whole neighborhood called a meeting to figure out how to deal with this mess. Tano spoke up. "We gotta get out of here. The bugs are only 5 kilometers away. They could hit us any second." But Tano's neighbor James and his crew weren't buying it. James shot back. "You wanna leave? Fine, go. But listen up. Anyone who stays and fights for these houses gets to keep them." Truth was, he had his eye on Tano's house and garage, and he was ready to trade his minivan for it. After mulling it over that night, Tano took James up on the minivan offer, and everyone piled in and hit the road. While they were in the van, Tano found a mask. He knew it right away. That mask was one he'd kept on his boat. Juan piped up, "That's the mask Clara was wearing when she showed up." By now, Clara was starting to feel better. But the second she did, everyone started hammering her with questions. Like, what the hell was she doing on Juan's boat without his okay? And where'd she even get the key? Clara started making excuses, saying she didn't know anything about the mask and swore she never went near the boat. Basically, she was lying through her teeth in front of everyone. Anna figured maybe Clara was still shook up from the trauma and couldn't remember stuff. Later on, Tano ran into a buddy from the neighborhood who was holed up in a big supermarket. That place was locked down tight with hundreds of people inside. Everyone Juan had left in the tunnel had made it there too. The supermarket had enough food to last 2 weeks, no problem. People ate, drank, and partied hard. That night, Lucas got wasted on free booze and just vanished. Next morning, all hell broke loose. Word spread that the weather had suddenly cleared up, like someone flipped a switch. Then they remembered Lucas. Tano and Juan went looking for him inside, but the guy was nowhere. Right then, a car rolled up outside and some folks jumped out, unloading bullets into the crowd. Everyone dove for cover wherever they could. In the chaos, Tano's wife Anna and Ingrid got pinned down. Juan and Tano moved forward, covering each other, and Juan took out every single attacker, one by one. One of them was a woman wearing a weird locket. Who were these people? Where'd they come from? What did they want? Juan's mind was racing with questions. Just then, 2 military trucks pulled up, packed with people, and Lucas was with them. When they asked, Lucas said he was blackout drunk the night before and woke up on the highway, picked up by the army. He didn't even know how he got there. The army was rounding up folks from all over, taking them to Camp de Mayo for protection. So Juan and the rest went along with the soldiers. Meanwhile, down in the sewers, some guys showed up, hanging out with those alien-like creatures. Looked like the bugs were his puppets or something. In the next scene, Juan and his crew arrived at the Camp de Mayo army base. They had everything there. Medical stuff, food, you name it. Then the army chief called Tano in for a meeting. Turns out Lucas had let slip to the army chief that Tano was an electrical engineer. The chief wanted to send a message to survivors via radio, but the radio system was down. Tano checked it out and found the system itself was fine, but the radio tower was totally wrecked. To get it working again, they needed a new tower, which was in the central area. Tano was the only electrical engineer in the camp, and Lucas was dead set on tagging along. He kept saying, if we can just send one message, we could save a ton of lives. But Juan wasn't buying Lucas's sudden bleeding heart act or his weird new vibe. Something about his body language felt off. Somehow the guy had changed. Anyway, they put together a team and took a water route to a workshop in Jonas Leon. The plan was to grab a train from there to the central area. They had a locomotive engineer with them, a guy who could fix and drive a train like a pro. But there was another hurdle. They had to bust through a wall made of stacked up cars. So they rigged the front of the train like a heavy-duty shield and hit the road. Pretty soon they were about to smash into that wall, so they gave everyone a heads up to brace themselves. You could see the fear on everyone's faces. To lighten the mood, they started humming a song together. The locomotive driver cranked the train's speed to double, and then, bam, a massive crash. The train plowed right through the car wall and came out the other side. Crazy thing, not a single scratch on anyone. They made it to the central area, no problem. Now they just had 200 meters to go, but the tracks were busted, so they had to hoof it the rest of the way. They rolled up to the radio tower building, but it was a ghost town, not a soul in sight. Next thing you know, soldiers were posted up everywhere in the place. What they didn't know was that someone was watching them from a distance, and those soldiers were walking right into a trap. Once the radio was up and running, they started broadcasting to the survivors in Argentina. They were told to head to the Campo de Mayo Army base camp, where they'd get all the help they needed. The message played on a loop over the radio. Back at Campo de Mayo, folks were glued to the radio, listening for updates. Then an old guy heard the broadcast, proving the team they sent out had nailed their mission. Everyone was pumped, and the vibe was pure relief on both ends. Then, not far from their tower, they spotted a stadium lit up like a Christmas tree. Everyone's jaws dropped, eyes wide with shock. Juan told the captain they should check it out, but the captain brushed it off. Keeping the radio transmission going was his top priority. They just had to get through the night, and they'd head back in the morning. With some downtime, Juan and the crew started playing cards. Things were chill until Lucas suddenly lost it over something Omar said, flipped out, hurt him, and bolted. Juan and Tano were like, what the hell just happened? And took off after him. Meanwhile, the captain spotted one of his guys who he'd sent out on patrol that morning with some soldiers. Letting that dude back in was the captain's biggest screw-up. The guy was under someone else's control, and there were hundreds more like him. In a blink, they wiped out the soldiers on guard duty. Over at the tower, Lucas had climbed onto the building's railing. Juan and Tano were begging, come down, man, let's talk. But Lucas was rambling, talking nonsense. He goes, you guys are doing good work here. Nothing's owed, it's all squared up. If they ask for dollars, say no, they're ripping you off. Then he stared at the stadium and just jumped. Juan and Tano couldn't make heads or tails of what he was going on about. Tano's eyes welled up, tears streaming. He and Lucas had been tight for 30 years. By then, the battery was dead, and they were free to head back. They somehow managed to shut the outer door while hiding from the enemies and ran toward the train. But there was no sign of the train driver, and on top of that, Ingrid was missing too. Everyone had scattered. Just then, a light flashed from a distant engine. At the same time, the enemies broke through the door and started chasing them. The four of them ran and somehow jumped onto the engine and managed to escape. Here, the train driver, looking scared, asked, where are my crew? Meanwhile, something about the stadium kept bugging Juan like a pounding headache. He had figured out that the plan to announce a message on the radio was actually a trap set by their enemies. Maybe their goal was to lure the remaining survivors to Campo de Mayo and pull off something big. It was super important to figure out that plan and warn the Campo de Mayo army base camp about the danger. That's why two of them headed toward the stadium, and what they saw there was seriously strange. People were acting like robots. Some were being trained to shoot guns, and nearby, alien creatures were casually walking around. All of a sudden, Juan started hallucinating. A lot of what he was seeing, it's like it had already happened before. Then out of nowhere, this alien creature shows up, tons of fingers on its hands, and somehow it's got everyone here under its control. No clue how, but it's calling all the shots.